Hello friends! Last week's episode on The Wild Robot posted the day Joker 2 came out. By the time I was writing up my script for that episode, I was already starting to see early reviews on the movie, and we can all agree at the time and since then, the majority has not been good. In last week's episode, I said, quote, "I'm avoiding all spoilers, but I'm managing my expectations after what I've been seeing. I'm still curious about the characters, singing, as well as the visuals. I feel like I'll be able to find something I like about it." End quote. I want to let you know right now that if you're expecting another negative review dragging this movie by the clown wig, then click away from this episode and I'll catch up with you next time. I know this is probably going to be another one of my controversial episodes, but if you're interested in hearing how I was totally right, then lock in. Hey there, movie lovers. Welcome back. It's your movie buddy here, ready to talk about the latest movie I watched. Whether you're a longtime subscriber or follower, or you're here with me for the first time, I am thrilled to have you here. If you're looking for detailed plot breakdowns, you won't find them here, but stick around for my thoughts and honest opinions on the latest film I watched in theaters. And if you're here with me on YouTube, you can find timestamps in the video's description to jump straight to the sections that you're most interested in. New reviews drop every Friday, so hit that subscribe button on YouTube and follow on Spotify to stay updated. Any TikToks or articles I mention will be linked in the description below, and links I don't mention will also be in the description below. There is a lot. I wanted to include reviews or thoughts from people on TikTok who enjoyed this movie and dove deep, as well as leave links for you guys from people who didn't like the movie. This is a safe space for opinions. It's not just me giving my take. I try to include and consider opinions that might not align with my own. With that out of the way, grab your popcorn, hit that subscribe button, hit that follow button, put on a smile, and let's get into today's episode on Joker Folie Deux. Struggling with his dual identity, failed comedian Arthur Fleck meets the love of his life, Lee Quinzel, while incarcerated at Arkham State Hospital. As always, I want to get into the themes of the film, or at least my take. On the surface, Joker 2 tackles big ideas like class disparity, corruption, and how one person can become a twisted symbol for a broken society. At its core, this movie is about Arthur's desperate fight for control over his own life, while everyone around him is trying to manipulate or exploit him. And through it all, we're watching his mental health unravel bit by bit. Beneath that, this movie is about Joker being Arthur's response to conflict and his traumatic childhood. This movie isn't about a psychopathic criminal mastermind. It's about Arthur Fleck struggling with his mental health. His mental state is a crucial element, so it's impossible to discuss his character without acknowledging his tragic story. We're going to gloss over this section because I don't think I can really get too into it without spoiling the film. But what I will say is that Arthur's journey is both tragic and heartbreakingly emotional. By the end, you're left with a sense of warm, haunting peace. Maybe it's the lighting, maybe it's the acting, but the character development fits the story and the character, in my opinion. The heavy themes and emotional weight of Arthur's story aren't just thrown in for no reason. They're meant to make you feel the intensity of his unraveling. That said, before we get any further into the episode, I want to stress that there are some themes and moments that might be sensitive for some viewers. Joker Folie Deux tackles some intense and potentially unsettling themes. The film explores complex mental health struggles, emotional manipulation, and the effects of societal isolation. If you are sensitive to depictions of mental illness, toxic relationships, police brutality, violence, or scenes that might just feel psychologically heavy, please keep this in mind if you do plan on watching the movie. The movie's unflinching depiction of these themes is amplified by its incredible cinematography. Joker 2 is visually stunning. The cinematography is grim and beautiful, striking a balance between Gotham's familiar grit and Arthur's imagination. The direction is fantastic, creating a visual experience that is both immersive and unsettling. The color palette is where I think this film really shines, from the cold blues to the warm glow of gold to the eye-catching combination of red, blue, yellow, and orange. These splashes of color contrast against the overbearing city and the walls of Arkham Asylum, pulling us further into Arthur's world and mind. Getting right into the acting, unsurprisingly, Lady Gaga's performance is nothing short of amazing. As Harley, or Lee Quinzel, she adds more to the prism that is Arthur's already fractured mind as their toxic dynamic unfolds on screen. She is so magnetic as Lee, and we get to see so many layers to this character as Gaga brings nuance and context to the character. We get the sharp psychologist and the unstable, twisted accomplice to Arthur's conflict. Speaking of Arthur, Joaquin Phoenix once again completely embodies the character in a way that is equal parts concerning and engaging. Phoenix reprises his role as Arthur Fleck and Joker with an even more unsettling intensity. His portrayal in 2019's Joker was already an award-winning masterpiece, but in Folie, Deux, Phoenix is given the chance to explore the character even more. His physicality, his voice, and every mannerism really blur the line for us as an audience between villain and victim, making his descent into chaos both terrifying and deeply empathetic. The chemistry between Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga is electric, drawing viewers into their shared psychosis as their dynamic spirals out of control. Together, they lead us through a flurry of emotions and chaos, creating a powerful connection that elevates the film's psychological weight. Their performances immerse us in a dark and tragic dance, creating countless moments of unsettling beauty and tension that are both thrilling and disturbing. So you might be wondering, how does Joker Folie, Deux compare to its predecessor, Joker? I think this is one of those cases where, for me personally, Joker is incredible, and I thought so right out of the theater. Joker 2 is fantastic right out of the theater, in my opinion. And it just gets better and better the more I think about it. The more I listen to people's reviews on the movie who actually liked it, my own deeper understanding of the movie, and how it handles the bigger picture. Joker being elevated to a symbol, and Arthur's struggle with mental health. The more I think about it, the more I love it. Both films get into the gritty psychological portrait of Arthur Fleck's tragic descent from himself to Joker. 2019's Joker frames this journey against a backdrop of societal neglect and class disparity, exploring mental illness, isolation, and the impact of a broken city on the individual. It's a bleak, solitary look at Arthur's unraveling. Folie, Deux maintains that psychological intensity, but it shifts the focus to the dynamic between Lee and Arthur. I've looked up a bunch of articles, reviews, and TikToks when I write up my own reviews, and the words relationship and romance are thrown around so much when it comes to these two, but what they have is definitely not that. The sequel incorporates elements of this toxic bond and the shared delusion. I love the touch of surrealism as we're pulled deeper into Arthur's mind. It's a visually dynamic experience that draws us into their chaotic world. While both films explore the psychological complexities of Joker, 2019's Joker offers a more grounded, solitary narrative, whereas Folie, Deux introduces a bright, chaotic, and sometimes surreal dynamic that amplifies the themes of shared delusion, obsession, and mental health. I think both films are incredible. Joker is more rooted in realism, while Folie, Deux has its feet on the ground from time to time, but it really plays with that realism and layers in elements of fantasy. Together, they work brilliantly to create a complex, multifaceted portrayal of one of comic book history's most iconic characters, giving us a lot to reflect on when it comes to sanity and human connections. Now, let's wrap up with my final thoughts on the movie. After discussing some key elements, the real question remains, is it worth your time? I'm gonna go with a maybe on this one. It's rare for me not to give you guys a solid yes or no, but I feel like this movie calls for it. This film is so divisive right now, and I'm sure some of my opinions already have people rolling their eyes, thinking I am way off. I'm also sure that those people haven't made it this far into the video. The reason I'm saying maybe is because while I really like this movie and I would love to say yes, I know it's not for everyone. I was seeing so many negative reviews before I even made it to the theater on Friday. I definitely went in wondering, is this movie really that bad, or are people completely missing the point? What I will say, and maybe this is a hot take, but I think people are wasting too much time trying to compare this Joker to any iteration of the Joker that is their favorite from the comics or other films, the Joker that they love, that they think is the best. But here's the thing. This isn't that guy. He was never intended to be that guy. Comparing him to other versions is setting yourself up to dislike this movie or to be disappointed. I think this is a fantastic movie and I would love to highly recommend it, but because the backlash is so intense, I don't really want to wholeheartedly recommend it. I would say yes, watch it if anything we've talked about in today's episode piqued your interest and maybe you're open to a deeper, deliberate, psychological look at Arthur and to see where his story goes next. Maybe watch this one during an early matinee or on a discount day if you're interested, but you're on the fence. On the other hand, if you're one of those rolling your eyes and thinking how wrong I am and you did make it this far into the video, hi. But don't worry, the criticisms are coming up next. But first, I don't do this often, but consider this your spoiler warning for Joker Folie Deux, because if I'm gonna defend this movie, I am not doing it with one arm tied behind my back. I will not spoil the ending, but if you do not want spoilers for the movie, please skip ahead. I'll leave a timestamp in the description below so you can skip the spoilers and pick back up when we're done. But if you're staying locked in with me, let's get into it. Of course, every movie has its pros and cons, and naturally people like what they like. We're gonna get into some criticisms of the movie and I'll share my thoughts along the way. I wanted to pick out critiques that had some substance to them. I saw plenty of comments saying this movie is not entertaining, it's disorienting, it's confusing, it's depressing, but I want to talk about the comments that had more to them. One critique said they aren't a fan of musicals, but they went in knowing it was a musical and they were open-minded. They said the music felt like filler that distracted from a choppy and chaotic plot. So the musical aspect of this movie doesn't even take up that much of the film. It's not overdone at all, and overall it's incorporated seamlessly with the story. We get more depth into Arthur's character and his perspective. I think it could feel like filler if we don't see that this is all happening in Arthur's head. We're seeing the world he's escaping into. The next person says that the film spends more time on Lee's origin rather than Joker. When Joker does appear, he's nothing like the confident character we saw in the first movie, and it's as if this film is actively undoing everything the original did. There is a lot here, so let's start with Lee. I don't think the film spent too much time on her origin. They explain that she comes from money, she has a PhD in psychology, and that she chooses to be in the asylum. Beyond that, it's very much the shared delusion, the fantasy, and the obsession. When Joker does appear, he's nothing like how he was in the first movie. Well, we do have Arthur's internal struggle with who he is and what he's done. And Joker as a growing symbol that people don't love, but they obsess over. This film is Arthur actively making these realizations. I know I said I wouldn't spoil the ending, but we can still talk about it vaguely. Someone said the ending was rushed and unsatisfying. I mentioned my thoughts on the ending earlier in the episode, but it's fitting. Also, you can totally see how the movie's going to end very early on, and it doesn't feel rushed, and everything leading up to it makes it feel like a satisfying ending, in my opinion. I love the ending. And Society Made the Joker is someone on TikTok who I used to see a lot of, and I am so glad she has popped back up on my For You page talking about this movie. I love the conversations she's having that I feel like some people are missing entirely. Before I get sidetracked, according to the National Library of Medicine, shared psychotic disorder, or Folie Deux, is a rare disorder characterized by sharing a specific delusion among two or more people in a close relationship. The inducer, primary, who has a psychotic disorder with delusions influences another individual or more, induced, secondary, based on a delusional belief. It is commonly seen among two individuals, but in rare cases can include larger groups. Folie Deux translates to madness for two, and the reason why I brought up Society Made the Joker on TikTok in the first place is because she said in one of those videos that I linked below that instead of being titled Madness for Two, this movie should have been titled Madness for All. I think this emphasizes the impact of the film's ending and Arthur Fleck, Joker's, story. Have you had the chance to watch Joker Folie Deux yet? If not, what's holding you back? Is it because it's a musical? Is it because of all the negative reviews that have been out? I'm really curious to hear your thoughts after today's episode. And if you've already watched it, I want to know your take. This is a safe space, you guys, so please let me know. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Or did you fall somewhere in between? Share your thoughts, opinions, and reactions in the comments below. I am all ears. In conclusion, while the first Joker focused primarily on social alienation and systemic injustice, Folie Deux takes a more introspective route. It drives into how love, or rather a distorted, obsessive version of it, can fuel and feed madness. This sequel shifts its focus inward, exploring Arthur's fractured mind and the toxic bond between him and Lee. It's a genre-defying experience, blending psychological reality with musical sequences and grim drama. Those musical numbers also add a surreal and unique layer to the storytelling. This structure might polarize audiences, it definitely has, but it undeniably sets this movie apart, in my opinion, in a good way. That said, this film definitely does not appeal to everyone. Its slower pacing, combined with its focus on psychological tension over traditional action, make it a more cerebral and unsettling watch. It's very much in line with the previous film, but viewers looking for a more typical comic book movie might find themselves thrown off by the film's deliberate pacing and heavy themes. Folie Deux also doesn't shy away from the darker aspects of mental illness and violence, which could be difficult to watch for some. I saw a TikTok that pointed out how in the film, people didn't care about Arthur. They cared about Joker. And how that sentiment is reflected in the audience? How is that not fascinating? Ultimately, the story in Joker Folie Deux complements the first Joker beautifully, continuing Arthur's tragic journey in a way that makes sense while pushing the narrative into bold and new territory. Phoenix's performance once again is unforgettable, and when paired with Lady Gaga's engaging performance as Lee, it leaves a lasting impact that goes beyond the screen. Together, these films offer not just a tragic story, but a powerful, haunting commentary on the human condition, mental health, and obsession. Alright, you guys, before we wrap up, I want to share what movies I'll be reviewing next. I don't have tickets for anything this week when this episode drops, so I will be working on a podcast exclusive episode for Twisters. The next movie I have tickets for is Smile 2, and I'll be watching that one on my birthday. I am so excited, you guys. I love the first one so much, and I have high hopes for the second one. I already told my honey how this movie should go. Obviously, she curses everyone at a concert or something, right? How crazy would that be? It's definitely giving Truth or Dare, but better, right? We're getting sidetracked a little bit. After that, I have tickets for Venom: The Last Dance. Last week, I was talking about how Andy Serkis is playing Null, and apparently that's a rumor. I saw some articles saying that a reliable source confirmed or that it's been revealed. In any case, I hope it's him. He's incredibly talented, and it's always a treat to see who he's bringing to life. Last week, I also mentioned that I did some scholarly Googling, and it seems like if they use him right, Null is going to be a really big deal, and the potential for Spider-Man eventually 2 and more. I have to say, I do want a solo Spider-Man movie so badly, but the potential is awesome to think about. Going into November, I have tickets for back-to-back movies, you guys, Gladiator 2 and Wicked. There is a lot that I am excited about in October, and honestly, the rest of the year. And if there is a movie that you're excited about and you want me to talk about, let me know in the comments below or send me a message on Instagram at a.rocket.review. Your suggestions are always welcome, and I love hearing from you guys. But for now, a huge thank you to everyone who has stuck around with me to the end of the video. Last time we talked, I shared my thoughts on The Wild Robot. If you haven't checked out that episode, it is just a click away. If you're watching today's episode on YouTube, you can find a link to that review in the top right corner. And for my podcast listeners, those episodes are available for you as well. Your feedback is always appreciated, so please share your thoughts on YouTube in the comments below. And if you're listening on the Spotify app, swipe up and let me know what you're thinking. Do you agree with my take? Do you have a different opinion? I told you guys this is a safe space. Let me know what you're thinking. Do you think Joker Folie Deux was as bad as people are saying? Initially, I was like, is this movie that bad, or do people just not understand it? I feel like a lot of the criticism came from those who didn't expect the musical elements, which I was very surprised at because that was announced a very long time ago. Or is it because Joker wasn't portrayed how they wanted, much like the movie itself? What about you? Did the musical sequences work for you, or did they take you out of the movie? And how do you feel about this reimagining of Joker? Overall, both films, Arthur's whole story. Let's get the conversation going. If you're enjoying the content on YouTube, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an update. For those who prefer on-the-go listening, maybe while you're in the car, while you're at work, or maybe you're getting ready for your day, follow me on Spotify so you don't miss out on our podcast exclusive episodes. And hey, if you're on Instagram, follow me at a.rocket.review for sneak peeks and behind the scenes content. And that's really just me going to the theater and watching movies at home. And I've also been listening to some audiobooks. So feel free to hop into my DMs with movie suggestions or just to chat about films. Your support honestly means so much to me, and your engagement helps our community grow. Whether it's on YouTube, the podcast, or on Instagram, your presence is greatly appreciated. So until next time, spread positivity, be safe, take care of yourself, and happy movie watching. I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.